Welcome to the Sinical Magazine Podcast. My name is Danny Stygion, and I'm the publisher of Sinical. Today's episode is number 19. It's been about 7 years since our last episode. A lot has happened since then, but we'll get into that in another episode. Today's guest is Perry Gallagher. His work was featured in the 2021 Hosiery issue of Sinical. Perry is a photographer I've always looked up to and admired, and he's been kind enough to answer some questions for me when it comes to photography in emails and phone conversations. And I was happy to finally meet him in a recent trip to Los Angeles for DomCon LA. And he's a really great guy. Anyway, let's get to the interview. What is your name and background?
Perry Gallagher, photographer. So I was born in Montana, grew up mostly in the Pacific Northwest, a little bit in Chicago. I've been in California since 83. No, I'm sorry. I've been in Southern California since 83. Moved to California in 80.
Oh, wow. And what is your style of photography?
Well, I'm most well known for my fine art, nude photography, photographing women. But I'm happy photographing people. I love photographing people, young, old, doesn't matter. But primarily, I'm known for my photographing women.
And what is it about photographing people compared to like landscapes or other styles of photography that you like?
I do like photography. I like photographing landscapes and cityscapes and pretty sights. But, photographing people is what really excites me, because I feel like I'm able to photograph a connection with people, that there's a lot more intimacy in my photography than what you might expect to see in a lot of photography of people. I try to also, 90% of the time, I try to shoot with whatever available light is there, that's present. I don't like adding artificial light. So, again, an attempt to try to keep the photograph feeling very real and intimate. And I think that's easier to achieve with light that looks familiar to people.
And when you first started, what inspired you to become a photographer?
When I was in third grade, my sister and I rode the school bus to school. And every day when I would step up onto the school bus, 2/3 of the way back on the driver's side of the bus, this eighth grade girl would stand up and she'd say, "Perry, come sit with me." And I would go back and I would sit with her. Sometimes she'd want to stand up and dance in the aisle on our way to school, but I had a mad crush on her. She was in 8th grade. I was in 3rd grade. So, she was going to move on to high school and I would be left behind, but I still had a crush. And one morning I was having breakfast, and on the back of a Captain Crunch cereal box was a big ad, 3 box tops and $5, and I could get a camera. So I asked my dad, "Hey, can I have a camera?" And he said, "Sure, eat lots of cereal." So every morning I stuffed myself so I'd get those 3 box tops. The day I got the camera in the mail, I put the film in, went down, got on the school bus, and sure enough, she stands up and said, "Perry, come sit with me." And I started taking my first pictures. In 3rd grade, I realized the value of immortalizing memories and people for forever. So that's how I got started.
Well, that's a cute story. What happened to that girl?
Oh, she grew up to have a really beautiful, happy life, I'm sure. I don't know. After she moved on, I didn't see her on the school bus anymore, but she was lovely. And then, I wasn't an avid photographer in grade school, but when I got into high school, I was the photographer for the newspaper, the annual. I just, photographed as much as I could. I was fortunate to have a key to the dark room, and so I did all my own processing and printing, and it was awesome. I loved it. Then college came along, and everybody told me I had to get serious about making a living, and I wasn't going to do that as a photographer. So I decided to go for a degree in business administration, leaving the most doors open for me. In hindsight, I wish I would have just followed my instinct and just been a photographer, because it certainly made me happy.
Was there any photographers in the beginning that inspired you or that you studied their work?
Yeah, well, Helmut Newton, Dioro, there's a lot. Usually when I'm asked this question, I'd be sitting in my office. I just look up at the books on my bookshelf. But since I'm in the middle of a move, I don't have those books on a bookshelf anymore to look at. But
They're all packed up.
I got a lot of my inspiration from other friends: Michael Helm, Steve Getty, Ed Fox. I'm fortunate to know some really great photographers in person. Oh, well, see, there's no answer for that. Yeah, for me, photography is a lot like dancing. I love it. I want to kind of follow the flow of it. So I didn't have like a strict discipline, other than I knew I wanted to use available light because it just felt the best to me. And I was very fortunate early on when I started to pursue photographing women and nudes that I met some really wonderful women who were very generous with their time and willingness to have me photograph them. There's an interesting story I share with most photographers about how I do what I do, and what I think was probably the best conversation I ever had in getting me on track. When I decided to start photographing again years after college, I decided to do that because it was always such a place of joy for me and happiness and photographing people. And so I got a new camera and new gear and started photographing people and women. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. And I started to put a portfolio together. One day I saw in Pasadena Bernard Mendoza. I'm pretty sure that was his name, Bernard Mendoza, a well-known photojournalist that was captured some amazing photographs that I loved. He mostly did photojournalism. Some of the most inspiring was photos he'd taken in the Middle East. I saw that he was speaking in Pasadena. I went to attend his lecture. I took my portfolio with me in the off chance that I could share it with him and have him give me some feedback. I got there early. I went to sat in the front row, and he was already up on stage 15 minutes before the talk was supposed to start. So I thought, well, maybe I could take this opportunity to share my photography with him. So I went up, asked him if he wouldn't mind taking a look at my photography and giving me some feedback. And he was very gracious and said, sure, absolutely. So I handed him my portfolio, and he very respectfully went through my portfolio. And what I mean by that is he didn't flip through it. He took his time and acknowledged my photographs one at a time as he went through them. And as he started going through my photos, he said, well, Perry, he says, I can tell you know how to use your camera. Your sense of light is great. Technically, these are fantastic photos. He said, but these photos don't tell me anything about you. I thought, what? I said, well, I like beautiful women. And he says, yeah, everybody does. Who doesn't? So he kept looking. And as he went through the photos, he got to the end and said, well, okay. He said, maybe there's this much of you in the photos. And he says, I get a little tiny sense of you in the photos. And I said, well, how do I get more of me in the photos when I'm photographing other people? And he said, you need to take risk. You need to show the viewer what compelled you to press that shutter button. What was it that made you do that? He said, you're using your brain for a lot of your photos, composition, lighting, shutter speed, depth of field, all that. He said, but you need to shoot from the heart or from, and I'm grabbing my crotch. There's two areas that you want to shoot from. Things that inspire you, that in your heart and things that, turn you on. And he says, you need to do that without fear to let people see, hey, I know what turns Perry on here. This is an example. And he told me in that meeting, he said, the greatest aspiration you should have in your photography is when there's one of your photographs hanging on the wall in a home or in a gallery somewhere, someone might walk up and without seeing your name attached to the photo would say, I'll bet Perry Gallagher took that photo. He says, when you can achieve that, he said, that's a level of success that you should strive for. I'm still working on that, but I feel like I've come a long way since that advice, and my photography does reflect me. When I got home, I mentioned what Bernard had said to me and told my wife at the time, and she said, well, I think that's good advice. Have you considered doing nudes? And I said, well, how am I going to do that? I approach women and say, hey, you want to get naked for me? Let me take some photos. No, I said, I don't know how to do that. And she told me, well, all you do is show them the photos that you've taken with women with clothes on. And when you ask them if they want to take their clothes off, they'll either say yes or no, but they'll want to take photos with you because of the quality of the photos that you're already taking with women in clothes. And the nudes would probably, get closer to showing more of you, which sounds weird. But anyway, so that's how I started doing nudes. I went to my lab that I was using at the time, and Jocelyn, the girl who usually helped me at the counter, was talking to me, and I told her, what I was going to try to do. I was going to start trying to photograph nudes, and she goes, "Oh, I think that'd be great. You should definitely." I was trying to tell her that I don't know how to approach women to ask that question. And just then, the universe sent a young woman up to the counter who came up to the girl working with Jocelyn. And she goes, I need your help. My agent says my photos aren't sexy enough, and I need sexier photos. And Jocelyn looks at me and like points her head over there like, oh, ask her. I'm like, I can't. I don't know how. So Jocelyn said, excuse me. This is Perry Gallagher. He's a very good photographer, and he wants to start photographing nudes. And I thought, you want sexy photos? Perry's really good. Maybe you guys could trade. You could do nudes for him, and he'd make sure you get some sexy photos. And she said, oh, absolutely. So that kind of kicked it off so far as going down that path. And Courtney Cruz was one of my early nude models. She worked at Pleasure Chest here in Hollywood, and my wife had suggested that I ask her to do nudes, and I was very resistant because she works in a sex shop, so she must be getting hit on all the time, and I was reluctant. And my wife once again said, if you don't ask her, you don't get to photograph her. If you ask her and she says no, you don't get to photograph her. But if you ask her and she says yes, then you get to photograph her. She says, I don't see the downside. And she's right. I walked in, I saw Courtney at the counter. I had my portfolio with me, and I was on crutches at the time from a torn Achilles tendon. I walked up and I introduced myself, and Courtney says, oh, I recognize you. And I said, well, I'm a photographer and I want to start photographing nudes. And so I thought, she goes, yeah, I'll do it. Before she saw my portfolio, she said, yeah, I'll do it. And I said, well, I didn't even show you my photos first. And she goes, doesn't matter. She goes, you're a nice guy, I can tell. So yeah, I'm up for it. So that's a lot of stories, a lot of me talking, but kind of how it all got started.
How do you put more heart or imprint your style onto the photos?
A great question. But honestly, as a photographer, well, you don't have to be a photographer. I mean, we all know when we see something that turns us on. Some guys are breast men, some guys are legs and ass, like myself. That's my, I don't know what you call it. That's my Krypton. No, Krypton's the opposite, isn't it? Anyway, we all know what turns us on. Some people like short skirts, some people like long skirts, long hair, short hair, blondes, brunettes. We all have different things that we like. We all have different things that touch our heart. I photographed an older woman many years ago. And I saw her in her room, and the light coming through the window on her just was so perfect. I put my camera up to my face, and I waited for her to see me. And then when she turned her head and saw me, she had the slightest little hint of a Mona Lisa smile, and I grabbed that shot. It was fantastic. But I took that picture because of how it moved me. Sometimes we're moved by sadness or anger. Those photographs will be more meaningful than just being out there not caring about what you're photographing. I say shoot with more feeling, whether you're feeling it between your legs or in your heart. Shoot with things that emote feeling for you. And if you can do that consistently as a photographer, then people will start to get to know you. I've had people comment about my photography over the years when I meet them, and they'll say something like, "Oh, you're an ass man, just like myself." They can tell from watching my photography what turns me on, what moves me, what I'm all about. I have people that pay enough attention to my photography, and when I'm photographing people, that they'll say, you always start with the eyes, and generally that's what I do when I'm on a photo shoot. I like to try to find that connection first, and then move on from there. But I think if I were to be critical of other photographers, they spend too much time thinking about all the technical aspects of the photo. It's best to let go of that and then just try to shoot when you see that moment of inspiration. Now, as a photographer photographing lots of people and doing it for a living, oftentimes you have to, you don't have to. I default to poses and positions and placement of my models that I know I always love. So getting to know with what turns you on will make your photographs even better.
So for you, it's kind of more important for things to happen in the moment and catching them instead of like a lot of pre-planning?
I really don't like pre-planning. As I started to say earlier, when I have a photo shoot with somebody, I like it to be more like a dance. I'll tell them, if you want to do nudes, then we start with nudes, because I don't want to have photos of a naked woman with lines on her body. If I see a nude photo of a woman with bra lines, panty lines, or lines on their body, then my emotional response, my feeling is that they got talked out of their clothes, and I don't ever want that look.
Yeah.
And if I end up doing nudes with a woman and she has some lines on her body because the lines didn't go away, or she showed up with the wrong clothing on, well, that's a lot of work to get rid of the lines. It's unnecessary work.
Yeah. And how do you approach working with models for the first time as far as like communication and direction?
That varies on what path they took to get to. If a woman is very familiar with my photography and she's been wanting to shoot with me for a while, then she knows what I'm all about. So they show up ready to go. And when somebody loves my photography or my style of photography and they want me to photograph them, then I know what they're expecting. They want me to see them. Well, I love this. One of the most common comments I get in emails from women that want me to photograph them is, "I just want to be seen through your eyes." So they see how I see women, and they want to be seen through my eyes. Does that make sense?
No, that's a good way to put it.
Oh, I love it. When they come through that channel, it's pretty effortless. They come in with tons of confidence and faith that they're going to end up with amazing photos, and we just jump in and I tell them everything to do. Now, if somebody comes to me that wants to do a boudoir shoot or a nude shoot, and they came from a friend who recommended me because I did such amazing photos of their children or their family portraits, Well, then it's a little bit more delicate because I have to feel them out in conversation as to how comfortable they are with their own sensuality, sexuality. And then I encourage women to always push beyond their comfort zone because the images can be deleted, they can be gotten rid of, and it's better to stretch and reach beyond comfort levels in life to achieve really, greatness.
Right.
And same is true for women that want to be photographed. Go beyond what's easy, and then see if you like that. And you know what? I've never had anybody regret trying to do more than what they thought they were comfortable with. I have had women regret not trying to do more than what they were comfortable with. And that's true.
Sorry. I was going to say, how do you make your subject more comfortable?
That's a great question. Okay, so my standard answer when I'm doing workshops and sharing with other photographers, my standard answer for that is, you know what, if you want your models, if you want the women to be comfortable when you're photographing them, be pure of heart. Start with good intentions. Be open, be honest about what your intentions are in the photo shoot, what you want to accomplish in the photo shoot. Reveal all about yourself and what your hopes are for the photo shoot. If a woman's very unfamiliar with my photography, then I'll spend some time showing her some of my photography before we even get together, so she has a real clear understanding of what my style is. And if she likes that style, then great. When she shows up, we're going to be good to go. But to help a woman be comfortable, be in a good headspace, have a sense of humor, always be honest, never ever lie to a model. Don't tell them you like something when in your head you're like, oh my God, I don't like that. Don't lie. Always be honest. And there's always something positive you can say that is honest to help encourage them and feel good about themselves. But never ever lie. Be upfront, open, and care about what they want to achieve in the photo shoot. When you've been doing it as long as I have and have the portfolio that I have, most of the time they want to be seen through my eyes, and I'm going to do that for them. I can do that. So this might be a good time to talk about my other approach. And I tell the models this too when I'm photographing them. I like to start out with what I call girlfriend pictures. We just met. We don't know each other. So you're not my girlfriend. I'm not your boyfriend. You probably have a girlfriend or a husband or whatever. But hey, when I photograph you, I try to have a sense of you, and I create a little bit of not a detailed experience of you, a bigger experience of you outside of just meeting you and the photo shoot. And I like you. And when I'm taking photos of you, I'm going to love you. And what I need you to do for me is love me back. So it's like we're in a movie. You're the girlfriend. I'm the photographer. Your boyfriend likes to photograph you every day or every Sunday, and you want this connection. I said, that's how we can create intimate photographs, when we can be those two characters. Sometimes a woman will say, oh, I know, because they want to be sexy. Let me back up. So a woman wants to be sexy, so she shows up and she has sexy faces that she tries to put on. And a sexy face will always look like porn because it's not based on feeling or emotion or, the right headspace. It's just like, oh, let me do this with my face and it'll look sexy. That always looks like porn to me. So I don't want sexy faces. And I tell women that, and then they'll say, oh, I'll just think of my boyfriend, think of my husband, think of my lover, think of. The problem with thinking of someone else that's not there taking their picture is when they're thinking of someone else, they will look far away. To me, their expression, even though they may be beautiful, their makeup's all perfect, everything's great, when they are thinking of someone else, they will look far away, not present. The other look that I don't like is, I call it the inventory look. And I can tell when a woman's doing an inventory look because she'll be doing something odd with her hand or her fingers and something totally unnatural. And the only reason somebody does something completely unnatural is because they're too much in their head and they're thinking about, what do I do with my hands? What do I do with my legs? Or knees apart, knees together, all the stuff that's going through their head. And if you're an attractive person or an average person and you are in your head, people are going to think you're stuck up, you're entitled, you're not approachable. It's not going to be an intimate photograph. So the best advice is love your photographer. You know what? I do this. I do this now, whether it's a family portrait, headshots for corporate offices, men, women, it doesn't matter. When I'm with people and I've got a limited amount of time and I need to have them connect with me in a short amount of time, I tell this to them and I tell everybody I meet when I'm taking their pictures. If you want to look amazing today and for the rest of your life in photos, whether it's a cell phone, a big lens, as soon as the camera's pointed at you, you look at the camera and you think, I like you. Don't put anything on your face, but put that emotion in your head. I like you. And then I tell them as I bring the camera up to my face, and if you want to look amazing, then it's I love you. And you do that with a person that you're photographing, watch the expression change. Because all they have to do to look good is just love their photographer. When I'm photographing a wedding or a larger event where I'm there for a certain amount of time, I'll hear it all night long or all afternoon. Oh, I love you, Perry. I love you, Perry. Which isn't a bad thing to hear when you're doing a photo shoot. Yeah. It's amazing. And the biggest example of that is photographing a family reunion of 27 people. And once I gave that instruction, I had several photos of everybody looking great in the photo. Before I gave that instruction, there was a handful here, a handful there, just not connecting. So that's gold right there. That's the price of the listening to the podcast.
That's a great way of looking at it. When you do a shoot, let's say, for example, with one person, and do you shoot a lot of images, or are you really selective about each image that you take? Because I know there's two different approaches to it.
Yeah. So the number of frames that are taken really comes down to whether or not the subject, the model, or the person you're photographing will look at the camera and have that connection of I like you, I love you, that connection of, here we are, the two of us. And everybody's capable of doing that. Well, I'd say 95% of everyone is capable of doing that. But some people can do it every time they look at the camera, and other people, it's a fleeting moment that crosses their eyes before they get back into their head about what do I do with my hand? What about, all the other stuff that's in their head. So if somebody passes through that zone of I like you or that connection and they can't hold it, then that results in more photos because I'm trying to grab that exact moment where I see that connection. And I have to say, it takes practice to see that connection. It takes practice to know when that moment's happening. We all know what it is. We don't identify it for what it is. But when somebody looks at us and they like us, we feel good. We don't dissect their expression. We just feel it. So, just if somebody can hold that look, then there's fewer photos. But I don't, I really just try to aim for the intimate moments, those moments of connection. And then I just try to, I try to have a lot of different poses. And like I said, like a dance, we just kind of find what's comfortable. And as I'm getting to photograph somebody, I see things that I like more and I might focus on that more. I might do close-ups. I might, do body parts or, it's just kind of, it's a flow of my experience in photographing someone. And when somebody really tries to press me to come up with a shot list or stuff like that, I just feel that tends to end up looking and feeling canned and less intimate. And I want intimate photos. But somebody pushes me, then we might start with that list, but we don't stay on that list. I don't remember ever having a photo shoot where we stayed to a list. Everything just kind of flowed. I had
Goes
a woman.
with the flow.
What?
Goes with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a woman show up for a photo shoot. She walks in and she had a little clutch in her hand. I said, "Oh, do you need help with your bag?" She goes, "No. Why?" I said, "Oh, that's all you brought?" She goes, "Perry, I know your photography." So she showed up knowing my photography very well and knew that she wasn't going to wear anything. And so why bring any luggage?
Do you prefer working inside studios or on locations?
I guess I prefer locations. Yeah, I prefer locations. I prefer places that feel real and not staged and not set up and not, but really what I prefer more than anything is great light. Big, soft light. Big, soft north-facing light is my ideal. And whether there's any furniture in the room, it's a bedroom or a kitchen, it doesn't matter. I just love the beautiful light. And I shoot with very fast lenses. So if you look at my website, or if you're familiar with my photography, I would say 85% of my photos are shot with the 85 1.2, the Canon 85 1.2 lens, L series lens. That's kind of my vision of how I see the world after using it for so long, for so many years. Another favorite I just got is the Canon 28 to 70 2.0. That's an amazing photo lens as well. I love it. But the 85 1.2 is kind of my art lens, my favorite lens.
And you primarily work with natural light. Do you bring any extra lights?
We'll bring extra lights. I mean, when I say natural, it's more like available light. Whatever light is available. I had a photo shoot with a woman. It was after dark, and the only light in the room was a 40-watt bulb and an IKEA lamp. And I love the photos. We didn't take very many because very limited light source, but love the photos. I want to work with whatever light is there that feels real. In a pinch, like when I'm running out to do corporate shots or something like that, if they tell me up front that I'll be shooting in the closet, then yes, I'll bring a softbox strobe. But otherwise, I will, keep a on-camera flash in my, bag, a speed light. And then if I'm hard pressed to use it, then I'll try to find a place to bounce it. So I get a bigger, softer light. And then if I'm shooting an event, again, bounce, or I like the Mag light, Mag Mod dome diffuser. It's pretty awesome for trying to make it not look like a flash.
Yeah, those things are good.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have to have stuff like that in case you have to use it, but artificial light is my last resort. Well, not artificial. Strobes, lights on stands, all of that. I was doing a workshop once, and the hope is that they'll start to see light better when I'm teaching. I remember walking by one of the stations where they had 3 photographers per model in several stations, and I walked by and they had this big bay door open, and the light was pouring, and it was just big and soft and beautiful. And I'm like, oh my God, they're getting it. They're getting it. By the time I made it back around to that station, they had added reflectors and hot lights, and oh my God.
Oh,
basically they killed it. They killed it because they had it. And then, so that's, again, if I had a criticism of photographers that like to, use lights, is wait, stop, don't even get that stuff out of the bag until you've exhausted every option of using what light is there. That's what I think. I'd much rather bump up the ISO, especially with newer cameras. The higher ISOs are really amazing so far as very low noise. But I'd rather bump up the ISO, open the lens up more, whatever I need to do to be able to use what light is there versus bring in a big light. That's my preference. But There are a lot of, I know lots of photographers who prefer just to have absolute control of the light. So they like to bring their lights with them and then they're in control. They know what they're going to get. I never know. I'll show up at a location and I have to figure it out. But I like that challenge. And for the most part, I'm up for it. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Here's some other advice I like to give photographers. Not that you're asking me, but
No, feel free.
I think you all practice seeing the light. And what I mean by that is no matter where you're at, when you're around people, whether it's at a mall, a restaurant, a waitress waiting on your table, at the bank, whatever, just see the person's face and then try to identify the light. And then you can't move the light. So how would you move that subject? How would you have them turn their head to have, or turn their body to have the best photo of them? And play this game with yourself all the time. I do it when I'm driving. I'll look at somebody in the car and I'll see the beautiful light on. Then I'll try to identify the light source and go, oh, wow, that's gorgeous. That's beautiful. All the time looking at the light on people. And then after you get really good at seeing the light, then you can start to say, oh, what temperature is that light? Is that a hot light? Is that a warm light? Is that a cold light? And then start to be sensitive to that factor in seeing the light.
That's great. That's great advice.
Yeah, no, do it all the time, everywhere. Grocery store, just doesn't matter. Just see somebody, and then how would you move them to the light?
This next question, I already know the answer, but for our listeners, I'm going to ask you, do you make a living from photography or is it a hobby?
I'm making a living from photography now. Most of my life, I was a stockbroker and did photography on the side, but I've committed to doing photography full time now and have been for the last year and a half. And I love it, man. I'm as happy as I've ever been and excited every day to just get up and be a photographer. Love it.
That's awesome. And how do you promote your work these days?
Well, I still get people contacting me through my website and other platforms where my photography is, Instagram, Facebook, UPic. But I also am listed on some different types of agencies. Gig Salad is probably my favorite. Gig Salad just takes 5% of the whatever I charge, and they charge the client 5%. That's the lowest fee of any referral platform. And there's other platforms that send me business. They take a much bigger chunk, but even though they take a much bigger chunk, basically I'm getting paid to meet people. And once I meet them and I photograph them, then they come back for more photos. They come to me for all their photo needs. I have, since I've been doing this full time and I met somebody on a platform, they'll hire me and pay my regular rate, and they'll do it, several times a year. So
that's awesome. This question is a little complex, so I'm not sure how you're going to answer it. But with smartphones and AI developing at a rapid rate, what do you think is the future of photography and photographers?
AI is pretty amazing, and I'm sure I'll have to figure out how. I guess I'm already using AI when I'm doing editing because the tools have gotten so much smarter. I haven't gotten better at using them; they're just smarter. It's amazing how much smarter the tools are in Photoshop. But so far as just talking to a computer and having it create an image, I've done some of that, and it's interesting. Visually appealing, like, oh, that's nice, but it's a nice photo, but it lacks the heart, it lacks the soul. And I think that's where AI is going to have the biggest challenge, but I have no doubt it'll eventually get there. But yeah, putting the heart and soul into something that's totally made up, I don't know how they're going to do that. There's lots that we do with our facial expressions that convey feeling and emotion, and they can fake that. But to me, when I look at the photos, they don't look like they may look like a real person, but they don't look like they have soul.
Right.
I don't know. I've never seen a photograph of or an AI image where that woman looks like she's turned on or excited about anything. It's just all. Remember what I said about if you try to put an emotion on your face that looks like porn or it looks fake.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens when AI tries to put emotion on things. That that's something fake making a sad look, as opposed to feeling sad and not changing the expression.
That's a good point. And then with smartphones, some models or people seem to try and take self-portraits. What would be your reasoning on why they should work with a photographer instead of doing that?
Oh, so I photograph a lot of people, and I will photograph somebody with proper lens, a portrait lens or something that's the right focal length to photograph someone's face. And they'll look at it and say, that doesn't look like me. And I have to say, well, that's because you're shooting yourself with a wide angle lens with a selfie phone, and your arm isn't, 8 feet long to get it far enough away to take away the distortion. I said, so you've gotten accustomed to seeing yourself as this distorted face. And when you see what you really look like, you have a hard time connecting it because the selfie is just that's not a true reflection of you. It's a selfie photo. It's not a true reflection of you because the lens is too wide.
It's a distorted image.
Yeah, it's a wide angle version of you. And if I photograph people with a wide angle lens, they probably wouldn't want me to come back and photograph them again, especially if they can just take that shot with their cell phone by themselves.
Yeah. And then I know that you are in the process of moving. Can you talk about your move to Portugal coming up?
I've decided that I'm ready to start my photography over in Portugal, in Europe. I'm fairly well known in Europe and have a lot of people that I'm looking forward to meeting over there. But I've fallen in love with Portugal. In fact, when I was there looking for my apartment, it felt like I'd been there before. It felt like I'd been there in another lifetime, which was a great feeling to have. It felt like I was going home. And I came back after finding my apartment. I missed it instantly. The people I met over there are wonderful. They're engaging. Their priorities are friends and family, and friends. Family first, friends, experiences, food. So they truly embrace all aspects of living.
Do you have a plan for when you get out there? Or you just kind of go with the flow?
Well, I got an apartment in a great location. Very very small little apartment, but it's in a perfect location. I'm kind of in the heart of all that's exciting about Porto, and I've already started meeting people there. In the few days that I was there, looking for my apartment, I had 3 separate occasions where people wanted to reach out to me for photography. My real estate agent, Sonia, who was amazing, told me when I told her what I do, she said, oh, that's good. She goes, we don't have very many photographers in Porto. I said, don't tease me. I said, that sounds good. She goes, no, we need more photographers in Porto. So I'm excited that I'll be a photographer in an area that needs more photographers. I plan on meeting a lot of people, getting to know them, photographing a lot of dance and music that happens there, getting to know the people in my community, and just making friends, and then word of mouth. I'm also going to look for similar platforms there that maybe promote photographers or people go to look for photographers. Because if they exist, then I'll certainly use that. It's the key as a photographer is to meet somebody, let them see if they like you or not, and have them love your photography. And then you're set. You've created a client for life.
Well, I hope it works out for you and you're happy out there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's already working out. It's pretty be awesome. I'm excited. I'll be doing more cityscapes, of course, and more landscapes, and exploring that aspect of my photography more, because there's just so much there that I want to share. It's just, again, inspiring, heartfelt, uplifting places and buildings and colors. And I'm so excited. I love it.
And, I was really happy to meet you in LA finally, and I appreciate all your tips, Perry, you've been giving me.
You do. Finally. Seems like it's been forever. I appreciate it.
And all right, well, that's all I got, Perry, and I appreciate you doing this interview with me.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you so much.